Hello, everyone. Welcome to BRAP. It is Wednesday, February 25th, last Wednesday of the month. And welcome, everyone. Definitely have a lot to talk about. Yeah, there was an interview with Matt Booty and the new Microsoft Gaming CEO, Asha Sharma. We'll talk about that. There are also some other things that we'll discuss, other gaming related news. Resident Evil Requiem comes out this week, which I think comes out tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm looking forward to that. But do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, I'm going to drop a link here in the live chat. If you could do me a solid here and retweet the link, it would help if I had the link. Here we go. Bender String says it's getting great reviews. I guess the reviews are out. I didn't bother looking at the reviews, to be honest with you, Bender. Yeah, do me a favor, retweet the link, and or share it on your favorite social media platform. Let everyone know we're live. But let's see here. High on Life says, "Good evening, y'all. Love that we have industry folks calling out Seeds on his Bluepoint leak. People got to stop giving him the traction and stop trying to legitimize him as a source." High Life, what's your issue with Detective Seeds? I don't understand. It's a bit trivial to come in here and post that. So I don't understand. Like, what's the issue? My mic is booming. I don't know. Is my mic sound okay, everyone? He says my mic is booming, so I don't know. But what is your issue, High on Life, with Detective Seeds? And who are the industries calling him out? I did see someone attempt to call him out and provided a tweet that was actually by somebody at Bluepoint. It was actually tweeted days before he actually released his quote unquote story about what kind of may have happened at Bluepoint. But again, that person at Bluepoint, that was tweeted out, shared on social media prior to Detective Seeds releasing his story about Bluepoint. And actually that tweet from Bluepoint had nothing to do. Nate the Hate, Reese Riley, Jason Schreier. Can you send me the links on that, High on Life? When Nate the Hate called out Detective Seeds. And I guess my question is, what is your issue with Detective Seeds? I mean, he stated that he reached out to somebody on LinkedIn. I don't have any reason not to believe him, to be honest with you. Well, it's a bit static. Hold on just a sec here. I don't know what's going on with my mic. Oh, does that sound better, everyone? Does my mic sound better? Ready for snow Monday. It's supposed to snow? Yeah, I hope it doesn't snow. I'm not ready for any more snow, to be honest. I think we've had enough snow the last couple. Yeah, like I'd be curious. High Life, you come in the live chat, immediately calling out Seeds for whatever reason. I don't know why you're doing that. I don't understand what compels you to call him out or try to discredit him. Like I'm generally curious. Like why did you come in here to do that? Yeah, I'm ready for spring too. What did Jason Schreier say? That Seeds was incorrect? That he heard something different? What did Nate the Hate say? Let me see if I can find what Nate the Hate said. Yeah, I don't see anything. Yeah, I don't know if High on Life is still there. All right, so how's that calling him out? I'm just this kind of I asked the question, High on Life, because this sort of thing is fascinating to me. Like, someone needs to do a sociological study on the behavior of gamers in the social media space, because Feeds put something out and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's great he got called out. How? I mean, Nathan Haight isn't saying, he's just saying that there's some truths, but a lot doesn't align with what he heard. I mean, it could very well be that maybe Nate heard slightly different variations of what happened, or that the experience of those impacted that provided some of that information to Seeds. Maybe their perspective of what happened was different as they view it through their own lens, or maybe they didn't have. We also don't know who Seed spoke to. They may have been, I don't know, who knows, senior level developers for all we know. It sounds bad. I don't know, Donnell. Hold on a sec here. Mike sounds bad. Let me see here. Hold on a sec here. And is that better? Oh, that's better. Is that better? Does my mic sound better now? Let me know what you guys think if the mic's better. I don't want to sound raspy like DMX. That'd be no good. Peaking just a bit now. Hold on a sec here. Let me do this. Lower in volume now. All right. How about now? Is it still lower in volume? Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with the mic. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. That's pretty good. So you guys can hear me okay then. Mic check. All right. Well, let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, apologize for the mic issues. I'm not sure. It might be a StreamYard issue. Actually, let me check something here on StreamYard. Check my settings. All right. I don't know if that's any better. A lot of bass. Perfect now. Okay, AC Gaming saying perfect now. Fine on my side. All right. Yeah. So I just made some tweaks here. Hopefully that's better. Yeah, I don't know why that happens sometimes. It's something with StreamYard. Actually, let me do this. Let me change something here real quick. All right. Hopefully that's better. Yeah, doubles DMX. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go back to yeah, so high on life. I just don't. I guess what I'm trying to understand is why the need, right? That you love to see industry folks calling out Seeds. Like, what did Seeds ever do to you? Well, I don't say why do people need to stop giving him traction and stop trying to legitimize him as a source? I mean, I can tell you that I've talked to people at PlayStation, and some of the things that Seeds has reported on or shared with me, some of those things have actually, many of those things have been confirmed. You just don't run with a story without getting the full perspective on what had happened. I mean, he reached out to sources, he reached out to people on LinkedIn, curious as to what happened, and he was reporting on what was explained to him. I mean, he's not a journalist. He's not claiming to be a journalist either. I don't understand like what I mean, that's fair that you take it with a grain of salt. What I don't understand is the need to pom pom. No, I shouldn't say the need to pom pom. What I don't understand is the need to celebrate the fact that, oh, people call them out, or folks are calling out C's on his Blue Point League. People got to stop giving him traction. Like, why do we need to stop giving him traction? I mean, it sounds to me like High on Life. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds to me like you have an axe to grind with Detective Seeds, and I don't know why you do. I mean, like Seeds has gotten things right. Seeds he's admitted, hey, I'm only reporting what I hear, and some of those things haven't come to fruition. He's admitted that. Like others don't get it right either. Like, Nate the Hate is not batting 1,000, but he's stretching the imagination. Neither is Jason Schreier. In fact, Bloomberg's been called out by other big publishers for reporting on stories that weren't entirely accurate either. I mean, are you holding Jason Schreier, Nate the Hate to the same rubric, the same standard? Like I'm just confused as to, the coming in here and saying, and saying, hey, love that we have industry folks calling out Seeds on this Blue Point League. I don't understand that. Like, I'm trying to understand why you have an axe to grind with him. It sounds personal. And maybe it isn't personal, but it sounds personal. Nate Dogg says exclusives are back. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, Nate Dogg. Not so sure I would. I'm not so sure I'd be celebrating that exclusives are back. Yeah, but again, but why come in here and say I'm glad people called him out? Like, I don't understand that. That to me is very trivial. Like, I don't understand the need to do that. We have Sarah Bond who just joined us, by the way. What's up, Sarah? I see Xbox 3 under the bus. They didn't even bother inviting you to the introductory of the new Microsoft CEO. Well, you weren't there, so that makes sense. But how are you this evening?
Good, man. Just enjoying my salty retirement.
Yeah, your salty retirement. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm actually having a conversation with High on Life here, who came in. Detective Seeds put out a tweet about what may have happened at Blue Point behind the scenes. He'd reached out to some folks on LinkedIn and talked to them, reported on that. And High on Life said, "Good evening, y'all. Love that we have industry folks calling out Seeds on his Blue Point leak. People got to stop giving him the traction, stop trying to legitimize him as a source." And I'm just like, okay, why are you coming in here? And it's like you have an axe to grind with Seeds. And I said to him, I said, look, even Nate the Hate has gotten it wrong. You talked about this the other day, the Game Logic. I think it was Bloomberg, right? Wasn't Bloomberg reprimanded by some big publishers for not getting a story accurate, 100% accurate or something, or misreporting something?
Yeah, I mean, three times they've been directly called out in press releases directly from the CEOs of Dell, Nintendo, and Apple. So Tim Cook directly called them out and asked them told them they should retract a report because it was false. So yeah, I mean that's a big deal. It's one thing when if the company responds to you and directly releases a press release, but for it to be coming directly from the CEO is a problem.
Yeah, and I just find it a bit. I really find it trivial that somebody would come onto the show in the chat and say, "I'm glad Seeds got called out." Like, I just don't understand it. I just don't. I'm trying to understand it. I just don't understand it. Like, I guess I just don't care enough. I read Seeds tweet, kind of just shook my head and said, okay, and just moved on with my life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the problem is endemically kind of calling Seeds part of this tabloid leak media market, and I don't think that's what Seeds is, and I don't think that's what he tries to be. I think he reports the stuff out that he gets a hold of, but that's entirely different than deliberately having points of contact at various points right throughout the industry, um, cultivating those contacts, and then and then hosting a media site that is entirely monetized for the express purpose of having wide scale leak based information like inside gaming, um, like Bloomberg, uh, like Tom Warren,
Windows
like
Central.
Rebecca Valentine. Right. So like yeah, like Windows Central, like So I mean, I don't think that's what Seeds does. I think Seeds reports on stuff that he gets from friends of his and from people who are associated with friends of his, within short reach. But I don't think, I wouldn't put him in the same category as like Moore's Law is dead or anything. And so,
No.
first of all, I think so my personal opinion, is I think that's a dirty market. I think that's, not good journalism. I think the people who feed on that are like the Romans in the Colosseum. And so when you're tripped up by stuff that comes out of that's because you're being the type of person who's asking who's up in the bleachers, screaming for blood.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, and then you get mad, and then you get mad because right, because you're feeding on this stuff like a parasite and like a leech.
Yeah.
And then you're surprised when you wind up getting a bite with some maggots in it. You shouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's a market that is essentially it is literally exactly like the types of private eyes who take the jobs, right? Get pictures of the wife who's cheating on the husband.
I'm watching you. Yeah.
It's the guy, you walk into his office, he doesn't have AC, he's got the fans blowing right with the wire metal screen. Right? He's got ketchup and mustard on his tie, eating a hot dog. And then you're surprised or mad, that market's like not perfect. And I'm like, that's because that's the type of media you seek. You're a reality television viewer. You watch Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, and Geraldo Rivera, and then you're mad because somebody's in there trying to find out who's the baby daddy. Like you don't really have any right to be mad. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, so
it's a great point. That's a great point, Logic. Yeah.
And the notion of trying to put those people like on some type of grading scale and determine like who's better and who's like that's I just
that's why
that's a great lead, I guess.
That's a great point. That's why I find it so odd. It's like, okay, like neither Nate the Hate's not a journalist. Yeah, Schreier, okay, Schreier, will hang outside of the bushes and try to land a scoop at a studio, but like I just like I know we've had Seeds on the show. I talked to Seeds off air, and Seeds has never presented himself as a journalist. Someone says I sound weird. I don't know. Apparently, I'm having mic problems. I don't know.
To me, you sound a little overblown.
That's what someone said.
Like your volume's high to the point where you're getting a little distortion.
Hold on a sec here. Let me do something here. How about now, Logic?
Yeah,
sound better.
Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, or you might have a little too much however you have your EQ set, you might have a little too much bass and not enough treble in your mic for your voice. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know. Hold on a sec here. I see my settings are off. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this sounds any better. I just adjusted some of the EQ here. I don't know.
Listening to the stream output directly on YouTube, it sounds more like you normally sound now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I turned the treble up a little bit, but you'll see if that works. Ghostface says I sound much better. All right, cool. We'll run with it. All right, so what was I going to say? I forgot what we're talking about because I'm dicking around with the settings here. Let me do this. Let me grab this super chat here. What's up, Donald Brown? CPix38 with the $5 super chat says, bold prediction, Microsoft will stop launching COD day one on Game Pass. You and I have talked about that. You and I have talked about that this week, where I said that I could see them, maybe seeing them pull the plug on Call of Duty out of Game Pass day one. And the reason why I say that's because that $300 million loss of Call of Duty, the cannibalization of arguably probably their biggest annual, I should say probably their biggest annual franchise release. So if that happened, Logic, it wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. I keep thinking about go back and think what Paul Thurrott said about 30% margins and, the need for ROI and to improve the health of the business. I'm like, well, one way you can do that is either further increasing the price of Game Pass and or removing Call of Duty out of Game Pass Ultimate Tier and so yeah, like we're not gonna have that game day one and Game Pass Ultimate. So what do you think, Logic?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, right? My whole problem with all of the concepts is, how do you walk the thing back? You've already walked back day and date. That was supposed to be the big get, and that's what got everybody lathered up, in 2017, 2018, 2019. And so you already moved that up to the Ultimate Tier, which I think is from my perspective is BS. Not from I'm a corporation and I need to do things to restructure my subscription service, but that you traded very loudly on the notion that the value prop of Game Pass was day and date, and then you moved those things to tiers and you didn't even acknowledge, what you were doing. Which is again, a big problem. A big part of my problem with the last regime, and I don't think this regime is going to be any different. Is they talk to their consumers like they're stupid. Like they're not going to notice that you've done something shady. Phil Spencer's whole
Logic. The problem is the consumers don't care because they eat up everything that Microsoft does.
Well, the ones that are there, the 9.85%.
I'm sorry. What's the percent again?
9.85.
Oh, okay.
That are left on the platform. And the rest of everybody else left. The rest of everybody else defected because they got tired of being talked to like they were stupid.
Yeah, I got tired of being gaslit by Microsoft, by Phil Spencer. Like Phil, like I'm not an idiot, Phil. Like I've been gaming for 40 plus years. Like you're not going to gaslight me. You're not going to tell me exclusives don't matter. But yeah, or that exclusives are an antiquated business model. Like I have eyes, But go ahead, Logic.
Yeah, no. So I just so I don't know how you just pull Call of Duty out of Game Pass when you have so many people, so many new subscribers that you acquired, and that are now in a cycle of like they hop on Game Pass expressly for the reason of getting access to Call of Duty, at least for 2 or 3 months, and then they drop. So I don't know. So I guess one way to do it is that you could, even if it's a lie, because unfortunately I think Microsoft is excellent at telemetry. They're excellent at instrumentation. They are excellent at data analytics. But I think with the gaming business, I think they've firmly stepped on the path of, yes, they are, but they will also just blatantly lie. about that data. And so I think you could tell the story that, hey, we've looked at this cycle of, we do gain new subscribers when Call of Duty launches, but we also know that 68%, 78%, whatever, some large number of them offboard from Game Pass 3 months after subscribing to Call of Duty. And so therefore we just evaluate that it's just really not a good business practice for us to put Call of Duty in Game Pass. I think you could get away with that explanation. And then I think another way that you could do it is you could further stratify and atomize the tiers, which I think might be a thing that they have to do, and start constructing it more like Amazon Prime and say, look, here's the flat price. And then from here, right, you can add, there are good gaming examples, so I'm just going to cite the Amazon examples. You can add Amazon Music, and then you can add Amazon Music Family, and then you can subscribe to all these other digital streaming services, and we'll give you a discount, but you're gonna do it via Amazon Prime, and you can subscribe to Amazon Kids, and you can subscribe to all this other stuff. So and here's the tier with no ads, and then you can have atomized services like that, so that and one of those things can be the Call of Duty pass, that you tack on top of it. You could also do things like add the Blizzard package, and you could also do things like I talked about this years ago with the acquisition. You could then add the Candy Crush package, or the King package, or the mobile package, for an extra $5 or $10
package.
What's that?
The World of Warcraft package.
Yeah. That's what I meant in the Blizzard package. You get access to World of Warcraft and whatever else. So they could go about it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that might be something that, like, if they did like an ABK package, like that might be something I think that consumers would probably stomach a bit more, because you're getting not just Call of Duty, but you're getting everything Activision Blizzard King, right? So yes, we're gonna charge you. I'm sure some people obviously will be unhappy about it, but I think that's probably easier to digest. If they went that route. But I do think at some point they're going to introduce a tier that has ads. There'll be, and I just wouldn't be surprised if they increase the price of Game Pass again.
Oh, the Game Pass price is absolutely going to increase in some way. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but like in that scenario that I just painted out, what I would expect would happen is that you would get Ultimate moved up to $35, for instance, right? And then that 35 instance would be that Game Pass Ultimate plus Day and Date plus Call of Duty. We're increasing the price, right, for that Call of Duty thing. But what we're doing is, for everybody who doesn't want Call of Duty and doesn't want to be bothered, we're going to drop that price to whatever would be in between, right? Whatever the current medium tier is, and current Ultimate. So let's just say $27.50 for the sake of argument. So anybody who doesn't want to be bothered with Call of Duty is going to look at that and say, okay, great, I'm getting a discount. And then they'll have all these, pick and pack, ad hoc, grocery shopping list things that you can add on. Maybe, I don't know.
I tell you what, and I said this to you early in the week.
Hold on, you got it. You see what K-Med said in the chat?
No, what did K-Med say?
Yeah. Shout out to the great K-Med for coming through. We appreciate you. And everybody else who's in there, our regulars, Otacon, Ocelot, Real Innate, some of the other people. But K-Med says, I want a tier that has Pornhub Premium included.
Oh my gosh. Or K-Med, how about like the top OnlyFans, right? Like content creators. That's pretty funny. Thank you for stopping by, K-Med. I said this to you like this week, and I know you pushed back. You said no, that's crazy, but I could see them saying, I could see the Xbox fans, right, the diehards, because they don't push back ever. Whatever Microsoft says is gospel. They're never going to push back. It's like Gary would have said, like they're suckers, like they are marketing teams dream because they're just suckers, right? And I could see that. I could see like Microsoft saying, you know what, we're gonna charge $70 for an ultimate tier, for the ultimate tier that includes Call of Duty. And the Xbox fans will rationalize and say, well, wait a minute. If I was going to buy Call of Duty anyway, that's $70. And now I'm just paying $70 a month for hundreds of games. You know, and their logic would be new AAA games cost $70. Game Pass gives day one access to first-party releases. You know, and if you play just one new game per month, you break even. Like that is they could price gouge Xbox fans because Xbox fans, the diehards, have no backbone. They have no spine. The argument would this would be the argument logic. Hear me out for just a second. This would be the argument. Tell me if you agree with me, K-Med, or anyone else in the live chat. The real name says like Netflix adding wrestling and then raising my price, but I don't watch wrestling anymore. So why am I being punished? Exactly. Well, because they cut that deal with WWE. They're paying WWE to air their content. So, what was I saying here? My argument logic. So just hear me out for a second. The diehard Xbox fans, the 9.85%. Did I get the number right?
Those are the diehards. Those are the people still on the platform. I would call them viable because I'm not counting the Xbox One people because they're not spending any money.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the diehards. This is their argument. If you play just one new game a month, you're going to break even. They'll rationalize this. If you play Call of Duty, right? Forza, Elder Scrolls Day One, say Elder Scrolls 6 drops, right? Day one. They're going to say that's 3 games. That's $210 right there. And you paid $70 to get all of them. Plus everything else you get, right? That is how Microsoft will charge the diehard Xbox fans $70. They'll almost double the price of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate Tier. And you know what? These guys will eat it up. They'll find every excuse in the book. They'll rationalize it. And they'll do it in the way I just explained it. They will tell you that instead of spending $800 a year in games, or whatever the case is, that you're going to get more content by going the Game Pass route. And they'll say, you know what? I don't have to worry about if I buy a game for $70, I don't like it. I can just try it out. There's no buyer's remorse. I can try anything instantly.
Yeah, I think what they will definitely point to also is particularly if they do that this year. And look, I wouldn't necessarily say my position is pushback. It's more so that I absolutely agree that the price is going to go up.
You don't think $70?
Yeah, jumping from $30 to $70 in one fell swoop, I think would carpet bomb the business.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question though. But could you do agree with me that they would rationalize it that way?
Oh, absolutely. They're going to absolutely rationalize. And what I was going to say is they will particularly rationalize it in a year like this year if the output of the production pipeline is high. Right, in their eyes. If they look at, first of all, if they listen to you and pom what you said, which was that 2025 was the greatest year of Game Pass, and
I stand by that, sir. I stand by that.
And they look at this year and they say, yeah, I mean, look at how frequently they're pumping games out now. We're getting a new first party game like every 2 months, or whatever it is. Yeah, they will definitely rationalize it based on that, unquestionably. I mean, they're gonna. I mean, let's even to just further simplify it. If there is another price increase, despite the outcry and the belly aching last fall, the diehards will rationalize a further price increase, and they will simply rationalize it as, like you said, I'm still paying less than I would be paying if I were buying individual games.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, like K-Med said it, like, listen, I was going to pay $79 for Call of Duty anyway, so I'm saving $9. K-Med, you're not wrong. And then, as we know per the leaked emails, Phil Spencer, right? What did he say? We got to reach out to our quote-unquote media outlets get people on board. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to that effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said something about if we get them to evangelize it, then it will kind of be a self-licking ice cream cone.
Yeah, so he'll just he'll get his he's not there anymore, but the Xbox leadership will pull out the Rolodex of numbers and speed dial or dial over to Windows Central, and some of the diehard Xbox content creators, and say, hey, look, here are your marching orders. Go out and evangelize for us. Tell people that, hey, even though the Game Pass Ultimate tier is $70 a month, you're still getting console, PC gaming, cloud gaming, online multiplayer, whatever else is included. You're paying $80 for Call of Duty. Now you're only paying $70. You're saving $9, whatever K-Man said, right? And people will make those Netflix comparisons, and they'll say you get to spend $70 and get unlimited gaming for hundreds of hours of entertainment, thousands of hours of entertainment. That's how they'll be able to pass this across the finish line to the Xbox consumers. So, and again, like I said, Logic, they're not going to push back because they don't have they don't. I don't know. I'm trying to be nice about it, but they just don't have a backbone. And you see it. You see the Microsoft PR machine out right now, and they're just eating it up. It's kind of pathetic. They're just eating it up. No, okay, man, we haven't addressed AI Asha yet. Mr. Grimm says spineless. Yeah, I just and I see it like it's crazy. Like I don't remember the Xbox community being like that. B Money and I talked about it last week, and B was one of the B Money was one of the, if you've been on gaming Twitter, B was a part of a podcast, a Tick podcast, that was one of the, they were like one of the OG podcasts that interviewed Phil Spencer, that interviewed Albert Pinella, rest in peace, Major Nelson, and this goes back, 13 years ago now. So, Cronerick says, BRAP, you better watch out. The Xbox community will go after you as well as hard. Go after you as well as hard as they're going after Blessing. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. But Logic, want to switch gears here?
Why would Kind of Funny Games Daily? Why would Kind of Funny Games? Why would Greg Miller's outlet care one iota about YouTube content creators, quote unquote, going after Blessing? That's just the presumptuousness and the audacity of amazes me day to day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And on top of that, Blessing didn't say anything that was revolutionary. Blessing said things that we have codified for the last 5 years, and he was exactly correct.
Oh, Blessing was spot on. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Blessing said what everyone has been quietly thinking in the room, except for us. We've talked about this quite a bit. So yeah, I want to switch gears. There was something you wanted to talk about today. About what does it mean to run it? Yeah, go ahead.
So that's a very deep topic. Okay, so just
we got to set it up.
Yeah, just before we say that, let me run and grab my energy drink out of the freezer before it explodes. I'll be right back in like 2 minutes.
All right. Yep. If only Asha and Phil around to teach her how to finesse the community because she's already blown. No, I think she's finessed the community already. I think that, like the PR machine is out. Like I was told, someone has said to me, like when the announcement was made they said to me on Friday, they said, watch now as the PR machine for Microsoft cranks up, right? And they said they were going to give an interview to a friendlier site, which is Windows Central. So yeah, I mean, like, they're pulling, she was active on Twitter during the weekend, showing her gamer tag, her achievements, and then came out afterwards and said, well, that's not, my family also shares my gamer tag, so the games listed on my account aren't necessarily all games that I've played, but she said she's trying to learn. Yeah, Nate, I agree with you 110%, Nate. I mean, they're eating up everything she's saying. I mean, look, I honestly, the days of optimism for me with regards to Xbox are gone. I do see people, and bless them, they feel optimistic about Xbox. I don't. And I don't, because I look at the financials, right? I look at the shift in strategy that's driven by the economic realities of where Xbox is, and those aren't changing overnight. And so, yeah, I'm not as optimistic. They are in a situation where, we'll talk about this later too, where I do think that, and I keep hearing this, like, them leaving hardware, whether it happens next generation or not, I haven't heard 110% for sure that they're going to exit, the hardware next gen. I've heard things that is on the table. Nothing's off the table, right? And that, yeah, that could happen. But what's the one thing that I've consistently heard is that in terms of future hardware, yeah, they're exiting that space. There just isn't money in them anymore to make hardware. Especially now that they're putting all their games on other platforms and are probably going to be more focused on that software as a service type business. And so, that's going to be the core driver for them in the future. I mean, that's sort of, I mean, that's where they're, I mean, that's kind of where they're, that's their pivot now. So yeah, Logic, are you back? I don't know if you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah. So yeah, did you want to, I know you said it's a deep topic, so I don't know if you want to kind of kick that off or.
Yeah, sure. We can get into that. So I think what I sent you today was, listening to some other podcasts, and we kind of have this perfect storm of where people are covering things that have happened at Sony, and things are covering things that are going on at Xbox. We've, been harassed to a great multitude over the last 3 years over, our feelings on Xbox and its performance on the market. And so I think now would be a good time to kind of visit or revisit what constitutes running a good gaming business in 2026. Because I'm a little confused. Like when people ask me, why are you down on Xbox? Why do you approve of PlayStation? It's very simple. I simply call out 3 metrics that in my mind are objectively inarguable: revenue, ARPU, and user base. All 3 of which are greater than Xbox. Then when we talk about games, I point to my personal triumvirate, which is review scores, sales, and awards. And again, you could not agree with that rubric. That's absolutely fine. Right? But when I say these games got awards and these didn't, that's not an argument. Right? Those are facts. So, at PlayStation, a lot of the dialogue now is, and I was listening to a podcast Beyond earlier today, and a comment from Brian O'Tono kind of made me think, and he said, you can produce, the greatest art in the world, the greatest video games, but you're still going to get yelled at, called out, held accountable, whatever, for closing a studio. And when I talked to you earlier today, I said, I mean, so when the Blue Point thing went down, my struggle with kind of where that landed with me was, okay, there's a thing there, but what I can't discount is that PlayStation probably arguably makes the greatest amount of revenue in the gaming business right now. Maybe they're exceeded by Tencent, but Tencent's revenue is inclusive of mobile revenue. And I haven't done the digging, and I haven't found the numbers that separate that. So it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, Tencent's ahead of Sony.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're ahead of Sony in aggregate. Well, they're ahead of PlayStation in aggregate. But again, when I'm looking at the PC and console business, I don't know that Tencent's ahead of them because, like I said, their financials are muddied with mobile. So I'm trying to figure out how I feel about Blue Point, and I'm like, okay, but I can't take off the table the business that they're running. So I listened to that comment about, and I'm like, you're held accountable, like to what? Like, and again, the analogy I used with you today was, Tom Brady throws an interception, but or even maybe has one bad game, but do we run around talking about the New England Patriots weren't, 6-time Super Bowl winners and had a bona fide dynasty? Like, so, and then I'm like if you want to expend energy raking them over the coals for Blue Point, I think that's fine. Just like, so, sometimes Slow-Mo and I, it started off as an argument. I think over the years it settled down to just, trying to understand things. But like, I'm like, you can also yell and scream at them for like a quote unquote bad state of play. But I'm like, but if they sell the most consoles and the majority of the market still prefers that, then like, what is our expenditure of, yelling at them about a state of play really matter or mean? So it comes back around, like I said, to this rubric of like what is the measure now these days amongst content creators, whatever we want to call it, analysts, whatever, students of the industry, of what constitutes running a good business? And if you are a good business in the gaming industry, like, does that mean you can never close a studio? Does that mean you can never lay people off? I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, logic. I mean, obviously, you can have a healthy business and still lay people off. I mean, that's, and I wonder if people think that because your business is healthy, that you never have scenarios where you close studios down. We talk about portfolio management, like we talked about, like that. That's kind of what happened with Blue Point, right? Sony looking at their portfolio, and making a decision about Blue Point. Going to absolutely happen, even within companies, organizations that are fiscally healthy. I mean, I point to my own the company that I work for. We are fiscally healthy, and yet we went through you know this because I shared this with you, Logic, but we went through a period of layoffs. It wasn't a result of the business being unhealthy. It was, in some ways, a look, right, from leadership of where are we looking to pivot the business, and is the staff that we have, right, the people that we've employed, do we have the right people in positions to help us achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve, whatever pivot we're trying to accomplish, right? And those are conversations that I'm aware of those conversations because the work that I do, but and what leadership would explain to us is, hey, like we've let go this segment of or this particular group within the company because we no longer need that particular skill set. right? So I think I think the problem logic is that gamers, at least, I don't think have that insight or have had that exposure or been around those or been part of those conversations and understand that sometimes it isn't a matter of, oh, well, consoles are struggling and Bluepoint is proof of that. It's not that simple, right? And I think there's often an oversimplification of causality, right, with things like Bluepoint. And and sometimes it is because a business is struggling and not necessarily the broader industry. Like in the case of Xbox, like one of the things that I've heard over the last week or so is that, post Bluepoint is that, well, this is proof that the console industry is struggling. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I mean, we look at Nintendo and we look at PlayStation, and if we look at their the health of the of those two platforms, are doing very well and are very healthy. And we can point to the financials too that show us that, right? We can point to the investments in, AAA games. We know that Sony's still, even though they've closed a few studios because of what I would call a pivot, a slight pivot in their gas strategy. They're still planning on developing gas games or live service games. So I want to go back to like what you said, Logic, about what was the question you asked earlier? What it means to run a good gaming business, right? Is that?
Yeah, like how are we measuring that?
Yeah. So I know you mentioned kind of like how you measure that, and I agree with you. Like some of the things that you brought up are some of the things you brought up are like things that I look at to determine the health or whether or not a company's running a good gaming business. I think you mentioned revenue. I look at revenue, profitability, ARPU, the overall health of the platform, growth. But I also look like for me, I look at, and this goes back to consoles for me. I look at like, are they protecting the value of the hardware that I spent $500 on, or $300 on? The case of Nintendo Switch, I haven't upgraded Nintendo Switch 2 yet. Are they protecting that value, that ROI for me? And in the case of Xbox, I would say no. Because they no longer, and I say no because they no longer offer exclusive games to Xbox, and games that I can't experience anywhere else, and not just games that I can't experience anywhere else. I think to your earlier point, Logic, like I think you said games that are Metacritic 90s, and consistently in the conversation for game of the year, or games that really move the industry. That I always say this, like if a game scores like a 90, right? Like that says something, right? Because you have a game that's appealing to a broader audience, right? Who may have different taste in games. And I say broad audience, I mean like, a broad set of critics reviewing the games. So I look at that too. Like I look at like, are they putting out games? And one of the things I've said about Xbox is that there was a time where they were putting out games that really defined the platform, but also moved the industry, created this chatter, these wow moments, right? And put the platform in appearance this great thing. You have to come here to get it, right? And that's what so that is gone now with Xbox. So that's another lens that I view in terms of, what it means to run a good gaming business, right? Just that again, the platformer is protecting the value of their platform. The other thing I want to touch on, Logic, by the way, if you want to interrupt, feel free to jump in. I know I'm just rambling on here. I don't want to monetize the entire topic. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, then I want to ask,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
how is Sony protecting your $700 to $750 investment by closing Bluepoint?
See, I don't look at the closure of Bluepoint. Don't get me wrong. I love Demon Souls remake. Right? I love the Shadow of the Colossus remake. And I can certainly appreciate the work that Bluepoint did on the Nathan Drake collection. But outside of that, like, for me, it's like, okay, well, Bluepoint wasn't working on an original IP. Well, I guess they were, but we don't know what that is. But they hadn't released an original IP prior to, the acquisition of Sony or by Sony. But I don't look at like the closing of Bluepoint as Sony not protecting my investment, because I'm still getting those experiences that I can't get anywhere else. Right? I'm still getting the God of Wars. I'm still getting Saros. I'm still getting Wolverine this September, I believe. I'm still getting, I still got Spider-Man 2. I'm still getting, games that run performant on the PlayStation 5 Pro, where Sony's taking advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro console, with their first party titles, Ghost of Yotei being a recent example. I'm still getting those experiences using the DualSense Edge controller. So for me, like overall, like the subtraction of Bluepoint doesn't impact me, or doesn't impact those experiences for me that I'm having on PlayStation. Now, I think if they start closing like a Naughty Dog and a Sony Santa Monica, then we start having a different conversation. And I would say that for the most part, generally speaking, and I'm not saying that PlayStation has been infallible this generation, because obviously they've had some missteps. We've talked about the bumbling around the upgrade path at the start of the generation. Obviously they've had challenges with live service games. And I know you and I have talked about, like, off air, like if we compare this generation, like the PS4, yeah, I agree with you. Like, they haven't had that wow moment like I had with God of War 2018. Again, not to say that they haven't put out some really good games. They have, but they haven't put out anything where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to remember this game when I look back at the PlayStation 5 generation. But again, generally speaking, they have put out some really, really good games. Games that, again, are in that conversation for Game of the Year. Games that are critically acclaimed. Games that really differentiate the platform in comparison to its competitors. And I do want to say one more thing, Logic. I think it's important. We talked about like the Xbox. I've talked about like the Xbox messaging, right? And the consistent pivots and strategy. That's eroded a lot of the trust that I've had in the brand. And I haven't seen that with Nintendo and PlayStation. And that's the other thing. Like, I know when I buy a PlayStation console or I buy a Nintendo Switch, I know what I know what to expect, right? I know the kind of content they're going to give me. I know that they're not going to consistently change direction. Are there going to be slight pivots to the business model? Absolutely. But they haven't eroded on that trust, that consumer trust that I have. And I think that's big. To me, I would say that's a big part of how I would define like a good gaming business.
Yeah, I think I'm isolating a little bit, maybe because I'm super overoccupied by the whole Bluepoint closure. And like, look, obviously the Bluepoint studio closure isn't good, but it's a false equivalency to compare that to some of the studio closures at Xbox. And this is partially in response to these people who have been like well, why are you guys up in arms about the closures Xbox has made versus the closures that PlayStation has made? So, and I could be wrong. I'm going off, things that I'm pulling here kind of on the fly. The 4 studios that have been closed since 2020, I think. And my list may not be complete, but you got Bluepoint, Firewalk, Neon Koi, which was the mobile developer, and Pixel Opus. First of all, I would contend the vast majority of people didn't know who the hell Pixel Opus was until the announcement came out that they were being closed. But a key difference with these up until Bluepoint games, like all of those other studios, a key thing for me is, and I'm just talking about the emotional reaction from fans, right? The emotional reaction to those studios is not the same as the emotional reaction to Tango Gameworks and Arcane Studios, who had while Xbox, while they were owned by Xbox had put out good games that a lot of their fans had beat their chests for, right? In Hi-Fi Rush and Deathloop. And then Xbox turned around and closed those studios. So that's part of the reason. I don't know that people could be mad that PlayStation closed down Firewalk.
I'm not.
I mean, what people are mad about, justifiably so, is they're mad about that Concord wasn't a good game in the context that it just didn't do the numbers, right? And I can understand there being fan anger over Bluepoint, but let me also keep it a buck. People are mad about Bluepoint Studios being shut down. Fans are mad about Bluepoint Studios being shut down because of Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
And so if you're in the niche that loves Shadow of the Colossus and you love the remake, then you're probably mad. If you're in the niche of Souls players who love the Demon Souls remake and scream every week for a Bloodborne remake, then you're probably mad. But on a scale, I don't know that it's as impactful to the business. And with Xbox, you close down studios at a time where you have a reputation for not having effective production pipeline output from the number of studios that you have of good games, of games that pierce the veil. And you take 2 studios offline who had done that. They weren't great games, but they were solid. They weren't games that encouraged people to necessarily subscribe to Game Pass, I don't think. But they were definitely games that were known and that were discussed and were played. So I just don't think that we constantly do this thing with fans of the platforms, and we have fans of at least the Xbox platform that I've run into who will always insist scope and scale don't matter. That it's just binary.
It's never binary. Yeah. Well, it's like I said earlier, that is that oversimplification that we often see on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Right?
Yeah.
And these false equivalencies. But yeah, I'm sorry, go
ahead. And I'm not saying Blue Point's a nothing burger. I'm personally I hate to use the term, from a journalist perspective, I'm waiting to get confirmation of whether or not the developers are being retained. If the developers are being retained, then this is a reorg. I almost don't look at it as a studio closure. And again, if you're a person who was hoping for a Souls remake, then I can understand why you're mad. I'm not a Shadow of the Colossus fan. I'm not a Souls fan. So kind of like you said, BRAP, like I'm not personally impacted.
I'm not happy about it, by the way. I just want to make that clear. I was hoping for a Bloodborne remake. And there was a rumor at the start of the generation that there in fact was going to be a Bloodborne remake. But yeah, that's I don't think that's happening. So I personally don't mind remasters. I think there's some games that would have been nice for PlayStation to remaster. I know they pitched a couple games that Sony said no. But yeah, I mean, I don't want people to think that I don't care that Bluepoint closed, because I do. I just don't think it's as impactful as some are making it out to be, or I don't think it's on par with, like a Tango Gameworks or Arcane, right? Because they put out some games that really were games at the time when they came out. You think about like Hi-Fi Rush. That was a game that for that time, that period of time, to find that platform.
Especially at a time when they weren't putting games out.
Yeah, absolutely. And at a time where people were like praising it, I hadn't heard that kind of critical acclaim or praise about an Xbox first party game in years until Hi-Fi Rush came out.
Yeah, because there was a time after the acquisitions that Bethesda was carrying Xbox. Unquestionably so, Bethesda was the ones putting games out.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the baton was handed to Obsidian. And then Obsidian was carrying the water for Xbox. And then finally stuff started coming out last year. So my thing is, like, at the end of the day, like I said, my personal settling is to me, Blue Point is definitely not a nothing burger. Where I am unsettled and unclear is having a rubric for, again, how we consider who is running a good gaming business, because if PlayStation is number one, then I can understand people's perspective that shouldn't mean that they just get a pass for everything. And I accept, and there's part of my brain that accepts that. There's another part of my brain that has to deal with numbers and P&L all the time, right? And look at, how many touchdowns, right, are on which side of the scoreboard, where anything that happens that doesn't upset the status quo, right, of those three metrics, I'm like, okay, I get it, but but these are the three numbers. So, I don't know.
Let me grab these super chats here real quick. Donnell Brown, the $5 super chat, says, it's funny how you talk about Xbox fans eating whatever Xbox says and stuff. To me, it's like you're calling him, I know what you, MAGA fans. And actually, he corrects himself here with this $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Donnell Brown. I really appreciate that super chat, even though it was a correction. It says MAGA fans, my bad. Hey, Logic, any other? By the way, I think it's a great topic because I think great conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's one. I propose. I think it's one we continue to have periodically because.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I don't know that we figured out where to land.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Anything else, Logic, as relates to that topic, or?
No, I definitely want to get back to the blessing kind of funny games topic and Windows Central and anything else you got on the slate for tonight.
Yeah, let me pull that up here real quick. Give me a second here. I need to pull up the blessing clip. By the way, we have like 82 people here watching. Please do me a favor, do the YouTube thing, hit the like button. Helps out the channel. All right, let me pull this up. All right. This is a clip from Kind of Funny.
We got to talk about Xbox. Big article just came out from Jez talking with.
Don't get me started. No, nothing. Where they said nothing.
Blessing. Did you read my mind?
They said fucking nothing.
Oh my blessing!
But also, listen, I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm not gonna talk shit. I was gonna talk shit. I'm not gonna talk shit.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah,
it's a nothing burger because, simply put, she is coming into a new role. She has a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. It's like that little Uzi Vert. I just got here like yesterday.
Yeah, I just got here yesterday.
Literally,
I'm just out here.
This is my new job. I just got back. Okay, and that's simply how this is. She is coming into a new role. She has a lot to learn on top of everything.
Yeah,
but like she's not making decisions tomorrow. So like you're gonna wait some time.
Here's my beef, right?
Tell me.
You had gamesindustry.biz. You have Bloomberg, Jason
Yeah.
Schreier. You got the game business, Christopher Dring.
Yes.
You got you have IGN. You have
Yeah.
a list of people that you can go to have that first big interview, big conversation, lay out like, all right, where are we at with Xbox? I don't know. I feel like the place that you went isn't the place that you go if you're trying to have like a good interview. If you're trying to get something that is
Windows
like
Central, Jazz,
Windows
Xbox?
Central. It has Windows in the title of the website.
Here's the deal.
I don't go to Jez for my fucking objective journalism about a big corporate shakeup at Xbox.
It's just a
don't piss me off.
Opening interview. There will be many more interviews in the next.
This is your first one.
6 months. It's just fine. There's nothing to be said. We're gonna go to the person that's gonna make sure that they're okay with us saying nothing. What do you want to do? Grill her on day one?
Ask questions that are have somebody that's going to follow up. Have somebody that's going to ask questions that matter. Have somebody that's not going to fucking serve you the most softballs of questions. Have somebody that's going to give an objective fucking stance.
I'll get on the line with the crew. We'll get a hold and we'll get an interview for you.
I'm crashing out, Mike.
Okay.
All right, that's Blessings at Kind of Funny. He was discussing the article here. I just pulled the article here, Windows Central article, exclusive, talking to new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma and CCO Matt Booty. Quote, this team has brought it back before, and I'm here to help us do it again. Logic, let's what are your thoughts about Blessings' comments here?
So the major things that I want to point out is, number one, now you've heard the readback, right? It's not Blessing that calls out Jez. It's Snowbike Mike is the one who injects his name. Blessing starts the dialogue talking about Windows Central, and then Mike injects Jez's name. Now my personal feeling, my guess, my belief is that when Blessing goes on to then say Jez's name, he's already spun up at that point, right? Right. So he just capitalizes or seizes on the name because Mike mentioned it. I don't think Blessing's comment was necessarily a tirade solely isolated at Jez, although I do absolutely agree and think Jez's coverage of Xbox is almost always going to be positive, and that's really his point. And so before that, he rattles off a list of outlets that you could have had. You're knowingly, if you're going to invite Windows Central to cover this regime change, they're knowingly going to be positive. They're knowingly not going to ask challenging questions. And I would say ditto for like any notion. He said IGN. IGN does not mean freaking Ryan McCaffrey. Right? If you want to get somebody out there who's going to ask challenging questions, get Rebecca Valentine. So you could have had Jason Schreier, and I don't have a super high opinion of Jason Schreier. But he said you could have had Christopher Dring.
Yeah, they could have, or somebody at gamesindustry.biz.
Yeah, although I think gamesindustry.biz is a little less. They're a little less today than they were before. But yes, but still above the threshold, right? So you're absolutely right. You could have had a list of people. You could have had Paul Thurrott come out.
By the way, Paul Thurrott would have been great for this. As somebody who's covered Microsoft for God knows how many years, Paul would have been great. We could have had Paul and I forget his name now. I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah, I don't know. Because his new partner is the guy who came in to replace Mary Jo Foley. Because Mary Jo Foley
Brad Sams. Brad Sams. They could have had Brad Sams and Paul Thurrott cover this story. But yeah, go ahead, Logic.
Yeah. So absolutely could have had those people out. And so my problem is that I don't agree with Snowbike Mike. Actually, I don't agree with Snowbike Mike with about 98% of what he says. He says there's nothing to say. No, challenging questions you could have asked. You could have asked, where is Sarah Bond? You could have put her on the spot and said, Sarah Bond was Phil Spencer's number 2 for the last 3 years. She clearly was heavily involved in setting up this notion of what the Xbox ROG ally is, and so on and so forth. Is there any reason why she's not part of your leadership structure? Is there any reason why she's not here today? And sure, maybe you wouldn't have gotten an answer from that, but you would have elicited maybe some body language or some type of tell that would have helped us all understand what's going on that topic. You might have, they might have gotten angry at you. You might not have been invited back, but that's what you do as a journalist.
Well, that's the problem. They don't want to be blacklisted and not invited back. So they're not asking those tough questions. To me, this goes back to that email that Phil shared. You mentioned that in the leaks. We put it out to media. I forget what Phil said, but you said it earlier. but it speaks to like Phil leaking that, or that leaks Phil in the email saying like, hey, we can just get our media buddies, Windows Central in this case, to spin it up, get everyone's buy-in. And to me, this is like I don't disagree with Blessing's assessment of Windows Central. Like, it's Windows Central. It's Windows is in their title. Like I did see people say, I think, God, what's his name? Special Nick from, we used to be called Xbox Era, kind of questioning or what did he say? He said something about Blessings taking a shot.
He said, I think he said Blessing is the third person from the games media that he says is taking an unprovoked shot at Jez. And I'm like, again, we just rolled the tape. I don't think it was a shot at Jez. I don't think it was unprovoked. How can you say that it's unprovoked when the provocation was that he ran a puff piece article that didn't ask the new leadership any challenging questions and took and extrapolated every comment that was made to its ultimate happy path. And I'm sorry, Jez didn't write that article, right? But Windows Central did. Right? Didn't suggest in the article that here are all the, when they say things like the plan is the plan until it's not the plan, or that everything's on the table, that includes a host, a slew, a smorgasbord of bad things that could mean. But the only thing that they wrote about was all of the good things it could mean.
Well, this is my issue. And this is why I don't disagree with them calling him out. Be very blunt about this. That this is them pushing corporate propaganda, getting the green light, getting the invitation, right? We're going to give you this exclusive interview, right? Because we know we can count on you. We know you're going to go out there and spin this positively for us. So one thing that I heard on Friday when the announcement happened, watch the Microsoft PR machine start spinning, and they're good at it. And they're using Windows Central to spin that. Like I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, why wouldn't they ask those questions? Like you talk about this logic, like be advocates, right, for the fans of the platform. Don't be a vessel for a corporation. Like it's just like I just don't. It's flabbergasting to me that they wouldn't ask those questions. And what Special Nick is saying, like, hey, no one is taking. What did he say again? They're taking a shot at him. I forget what he said now.
Yeah, he said third person in the games media industry who's taking an unprovoked attack or whatever. And I saw a response from Joe saying this. He's attacked me before. I'm like, attacked.
Like this is childish logic. Attacked? No, this is somebody who's reading he didn't say anything that many people are thinking when they read this article, right? That they weren't tough questions being asked here. That they said nothing. They being Asha Sharma and Matt Booty. It isn't a cheap shot. It's an evaluation of the article. It's people expressing their perspectives on what's being communicated here in the article. And the fact that Windows Central, which again, to Blessing's point, it says Windows it says Windows. It's like Nintendo Power putting out a puff piece for Nintendo. And I don't disagree. There probably could have been, like, Christopher Dring would have been great for this. Or if you want somebody who's, I guess, affiliated with Microsoft, a Paul Thurrott. But it's provoked, attacked. Like that, to me, that's that victim mentality. You're not being attacked. You're being called out for what you guys often do in Windows Central is act kind of as a PR arm for a $1 trillion corporation instead of advocating for consumers or advocating for your fans. And we've seen this PR spin up. We've seen Microsoft, Xbox manipulate content creators and Xbox friendly media outlets, right? To push their narrative, to push their messaging forward. And I've said this, like, to me, that's a problem. Like, we shouldn't be advocating for corporations. These corporations, it's funny, like Eric Jackson used to say this all the time, like, the corporations have one job. They're not trying to be your friends. It is the Xbox has this weird parasocial thing going on with Xbox. I saw something else today where somebody put together a bunch of names welcoming Asha Sharma to the community. I'm like, oh, why are we spending time putting together something like this? Like, it's just odd to me. Someone really needs to do a sociological case study on the diehard Xbox fans and the relationship with Xbox. It's really weird to me. Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize the time here, but
no, you're good.
I just I've got problems with the way they covered this article too, Logic. I need to pull this up here. I don't. Let me read the article first. All right. All right. Asher Sharma's taken over for Phil Spencer, who is set to fully retire from the business this October. Spencer's been instrumental in turning Xbox from a Microsoft. I'm not going to. Okay, let me go to the. Briefly caught up. Okay, here we go. On the return to Xbox, commitment to Xbox hardware. In her opening letter, Asha Sharma said she wanted to bring about a return to Xbox. I asked exactly what that means. This effectively implies that Xbox has begun to stray from what Xbox is. Sharma volunteered an emphasis on Xbox's core, and specifically its beleaguered console platform, which has seen a few fiscals of near constant decline. She replied, "For me, the spirit of return to Xbox is about returning to the spirit that the team was founded on. It's that spirit of surprise. It's the spirit of building something nobody else will." I can't even read today. It's a spirit of building something nobody else was willing to try. I've heard Renegade, Rebellion, and Fun. That's what I was thinking about when I wrote that. Then Sharma acknowledged the investment Xbox fans and customers have poured into the ecosystem over the years. It seemed genuinely keen to emphasize her commitment to console hardware. I think that our core Xbox fans and players have invested up to 25 years of themselves in these universes and our console. I want to make sure everybody knows I'm committed to Xbox, starting with the console. We're going to keep meeting players where they are. That's such a weird statement to me. Starting with console, but then we're going to meet people where they are. It's not console, not Xbox console. The world continues to evolve and change. We're going to make sure Xbox is a great place for developers and players. We've heard that before. We want to invest in reducing the artificial divide between different types of devices that they want to use with us. I think that's going to mean a lot more investment. Hold on a sec here.
Yeah, just while you're looking at it. So my apologies, I was incorrect. Jez did write that article.
Yeah, he did.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought it was somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot more investment in breaking down the barriers and helping developers build once and show up across different hardware experiences. We've heard that. For me, I believe Xbox starts with its fans and will grow from here. That's what I wanted to signal with the return to Xbox. There's been a ton of speculation on what kind of moves Asha might make. Xbox has totally ditched any form of exclusivity on its games, shifting units to PlayStation, paying little mind to the criticisms that it reduces the need to actually buy an Xbox. Xiaomi told me that nothing is off the table when it comes to revising Xbox strategy. I'm going to go back to that in just a second. But finalizing the strategy will take time and data parsing. On Xbox recent strategic decisions, Sharma said, the plan's the plan until it's not the plan. Right now, I need to learn candidly about the why of these decisions, what we were optimizing for, and what the data says about the Xbox strategy today. That's the honest answer. I'm looking at lifetime value, not just what happened in a previous moment or in short-term efficiencies and things like that. The plan's a plan until it's not the plan. Sherman described her and Matt Booty are currently going on a whirlwind learning tour of all of Xbox gaming teams with studio and org visits penned in for Microsoft, Bethesda, Activision, more. Matt Booty cautioned that players shouldn't expect drastic changes in the near term, though, while emphasizing that the team's plans to re-examine and question everything. Xbox players have thousands of dollars invested in money and time too. It's incredibly important for me to understand. This is Sharma speaking. It's important. It's incredibly important for me to understand that and protect that. I am committed to returning to Xbox, and that starts with console. That starts with hardware. You will hear more about that soon. We'll have some announcements coming up. You'll see us collectively investing there. We also know that there are a lot of players who aren't on console or are hardware, and I want to deliver great games to them. Great games to them too. I need to learn more about what that can look like, what decisions were made, what we need to do going forward. And I want a little bit of time and space to do that. So Matt Booty chimes in. He says the thing about our products that are taking off, they built really great communities with their audiences. We're the stewards of a lot of communities and have been for decades. Thing that makes a community is that you build for that core. What I don't want us to do is have any creator at Xbox dilute their focus to chase an emerging community. If we want to invest in a new community, we'll look at how to do that. But it's really important that that people stay true to their core when they're building. The thing I've learned with building platforms over my career, there's kind of two things that really make a great platform. It's the quality of the product that you deliver for the core user, and it's the integrity of the decisions that stand behind it. There's a big community at Xbox, and we'll look at that right. And we'll look at the right way to serve that community. Let's see here. I'm gonna go past some of this stuff here. Some discussion about AI, saying there's no pressure from Microsoft to where does she say that? Yeah, we've got no pressure from Microsoft. There are no directives on AI coming down. Our teams are, this is Matt Booty said this, are free to use any technologies that might be beneficial. They address the AI thing. I want to go back to this Slack code here. Sharma didn't shy away from the challenge of facing Xbox, both externally and internally, but volunteered the idea of strengthening Xbox, not just for the near term, but for another quarter century. In her words, Sharma said her current goal is proof over promise. We know that the business has gone through some challenges. I'm going to use my expertise and the leaders that have the deep gaming depth around the table to help us grow the business and make sure that we have an incredible next 25 years. I will listen, I will learn, I will communicate what we're seeing and what we're doing. I think from here, the work is proof over promise. Matt and I are in it every hour for every day of every night. I'm fully in this thing. This team has brought it back before, and I'm here to help us do it again. All right, Logic. Quickly, what are your thoughts on some of the things that that were discussed in this article?
It's pretty useless.
Yeah, it doesn't really say anything we don't know already.
I mean, and this is
regurgitation of
This is the problem, and yes, I'm going to come off sounding like an elitist, and I'm going to come off sounding arrogant. But this is my problem with journalists in the games media who are not versed in these domains and have no expertise and haven't spent any time studying. He asked her almost zero questions that had anything to do with her P&L responsibilities. Right. So one question is, and I understand you're making assessments. I understand. Like, so the other thing he needs to understand is he does not understand that some of the terms that she dropped means that what she's essentially doing is she's essentially doing a 2 to 6 month assessment of the business. Well, then the question to ask is, what artifacts are you looking at to make that assessment? How are you looking at revenue? How are you looking at profit? How are you looking at the 30% margin demand from Amy Hood? And what types of decisions are you potentially considering? Because I'm sure that there's been discussions of what things, you're saying everything is on the table. Certainly some of the things that are on the table have been mentioned. Certainly there's been some discussion of things Phil Spencer had never considered, or Sarah Bond would never consider, things that they had said outright no to. And I understand that you're doing another question to ask is, I understand that you're doing an assessment, but you have an aged console that's on the market right now at an incredibly high price, way pricier than your competitors. You're in the back half of this console generation, and you have consumer uncertainty about continuing to invest on that platform. So I understand that you need quote unquote time to learn, but the clock is also ticking. You have a limited duration and time to do things, and there are certain things that you have to make decisions about in order for there to be a system product turnover, if that is going to happen on your timeline, particularly if it requires investment that requires approval from Satya and Amy Hood. And your budgets for those years have not been set yet. Right? So those are the types of questions to ask this person, right, who's in this position, because those are the types of things that will impact consumers. But again, Jez has gone on record, and he said in the recent podcast, right, that he's not a journalist, right? He's trying to champion the good feeling of fans. He's not trying to get to the hearts of matters, and he doesn't have the domain expertise to understand what questions to ask. So all this was like literally I can tell that it seems like the script for this interview was they went through the email and they just simply went down and said, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by this? What did you mean by that? And that's zero thought or analysis outside of the box, extended beyond what was written in the email. It's just a simple expand on this topic, expand on this topic, expand on that topic.
Yeah, no, I agree. Logic. I mean, it doesn't really provide us anything we already didn't know. Since the announcement of Asha Sharma taking over, and then what she talked about in the email. And it just this is Xbox PR, Microsoft marketing. I don't understand the perspective of tapping into the feel good spirit of fans. I don't get that. Like I don't know. Like I look at like gaming as like, am I getting good games? You know what I mean? Like I really don't think in communities in that way. I don't identify my personal brand, my identity isn't tied to a community, right? Like a community that's tied to a product, a consumer product. Like I don't understand that. Like that's just not how I think. Me secure logic. There's something I need to pull up here. I mean, and there's the thing about the hardware, right? Like if everything's on the table, like I would imagine like a follow would be like, okay, but like given the challenges that we have with hardware, or that you guys have with hardware, like if everything's on the table, like what does that mean for like you're saying that like, you're looking at what does she say about consoles again? Let me see if I can find that quote. Yeah, she said, I want to make sure everybody knows I'm committed to Xbox, starting with the console. But if everything's on the table, like, wouldn't that include consoles? Especially given the economic realities of where the Xbox, or specifically the hardware business, is right now. Like, it's tanking.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that article didn't ask what specifically did she mean by console.
No, it did not.
Against PC.
No, it did not.
That's how is that not question one out of your mouth? Look, the gaming industry consumers historically have defined console as an appliance, as an application specific, right, console, electronic device that is COTS, that is locked down, that is primarily for the purpose of playing games. And yes, today it does some additional video streaming stuff and plays music, but it is not the general purpose multifunction personal computer.
No, it's not.
Now, everything that we've heard up to this point is that what's coming next is going to be some type of hybrid. I understand that you can't maybe answer that question specifically, but I do want to understand, when you say console, do you mean that historical definition? Do you mean console as we defined it through Xbox 360, Xbox One, even Xbox Series X today? Or are you talking about something that is more sophisticated and looks like the Asus ROG Ally, because that was the last thing Sarah Bond told us? Like, that has to be, how is that? That has to be the first question out of your mouth.
Well, it wasn't.
unless as Blessing said, you're pitching softballs.
Well, that's exactly what that is. It's pitching softballs. I need to find. You sec here. There's one thing I want to find here. Logic. I need to find the Paul Thurrott thing here. I'll get to that in just a second. There was something else that I didn't really. I don't know if you saw this, Logic. And I actually replied to this particular tweet from Windows Central Gaming. Xbox stance on exclusives is changing. Xbox isn't ruling anything out, including a return to exclusives. Their own words: the plan is a plan until it's not the plan. Translation: the door is wide open if the strategy needs to change. Like, how are we arriving to exclusives? Like, this is extremely disingenuous. And I actually said this and got into a little bit of back and forth with I need to find the tweet now. I got into back and forth with whoever wrote this article, because I'm like, how are you arriving to this conclusion that this includes a return to exclusives, given like almost like just like this is like just like conveniently forgetting all the challenges that Microsoft is facing right now. Not Microsoft, but Xbox is facing right now in their business model. Like, clearly exclusives aren't a viable business model for them because they abandoned exclusivity and felt the need that, hey, we need to sell our software on more platforms because we're not selling enough on our own hardware. Nor are we selling enough hardware. Like, how does one come to that conclusion? And I got to find it. The guy who wrote this was like, well, I'm just reporting on what was said. I'm like, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not arguing with you that she didn't say the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. What I find disingenuous is you arriving to the conclusion that somehow includes a return of exclusives. Again, in light of the challenges that Xbox is facing. It's like, did you guys not see the Q2 2026 numbers? Gaming revenue down 9%, content services down 4%. You really think that exclusives are on the table? Like, what are we doing here? Like, just completely skating by all the economic realities of Xbox today. Like, those somehow disappeared because there's new leadership.
This is the biggest problem I have with that article, and again, I'm going to call it out too, is that it is actually a lie in comparison to what they actually wrote the first time and what the response from Xbox was. The response from Xbox from that leadership team is that they're going to take the next few months, and I assume that they've decomposed what is the Xbox plan into all of its parts, right? Into 25 primary tenets. And they're going to look at each of those 25 and say, should that thing stay or should it change? But again, if you've been around this stuff or been through this stuff before, in what she said is that it's going to take a long time to finalize the plan. And what that means is it means incremental changes. He's not going to come in and take all 25 of those tenants and entirely flip them over. Because from a data-driven perspective, it's impossible to calculate what impact that will have. So as a decision maker, what they're going to do is they're going to pick the top 3, the top 5, and they're going to change those. And then they're going to allow for some coast time to see what impact that is having on the business and see if it's positive. And then they will move on to the next 3 to 5 that they're going to change. So when you actually go back to the original article and look at Sharma's statements and look at Matt Booty's statements, and Matt Booty's statement saying, I wouldn't, don't expect anything to change for like the next year. So the just out and out lie of this is that actually it's highly unlikely that exclusives will be the thing that's going to change. The percentage chances that it's 1 out of the 25 things that they reverse. This is entirely capitalizing on the fact that she didn't say no. They're not going to continue. She didn't say rule out. No, we're not going to consider going back to exclusives. And so the extrapolation is that means it's fair game. That is predatory. That is pandering. And it's an actual just out and out misrepresentation of what they wrote in the original article.
That was my point to whoever wrote the article. He did respond to me. I didn't pull up my tweet that he responds to, but I'm like, look, look, I'm sorry. You guys are being disingenuous here. You're right, because it is a lie. And there is even a commentary. There's commentary in that article about tearing down these artificial barriers, which that Microsoft has referred to exclusivity as antiquated. And that barrier, right? That barrier is tied to exclusivity. We're going to meet where the gamers are. We're going to meet where the gamers are, right? We're going to bring our software to them. It means you're not that's the antithesis of exclusivity. Like I read this logic and I'm pulling my hair. I'm like, what are these guys doing? Why would you put that out there?
Yeah, because she said 9 things that would tell you that exclusives aren't coming back, and she said 1 thing that says they weren't ruled out. So that means I run an article that heavily suggests that there's a good chance exclusives will come back. Like this is the way that children communicate until you finally raise them correctly.
This is why the Xbox community, I've said this, not everyone, but the diehards, this is why that community is just grossly misinformed at times. And, they because they read stuff like this, they run with it. And then they create, like you say, fan fiction. And it just doesn't stop. It just snowballs out of control. Like, I've literally seen people on my timeline asking for exclusives to come back, right? when they've advocated that exclusives are antiquated because of what Sarah Bond told them. I want to welcome someone here. I'm about to shed a tear. Gaming Forte has joined us.
Yo, what is up?
Forte.
What is up?
Can I get a ooh yeah?
Ooh yeah.
For the man, the myth, the legend, and co-host of DPS podcast with Slow-Mo Backslap.
Yeah,
what's up, Forte?
What's going on, man? I just was listening to y'all while I was at the while I was picking my daughter up from work, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna jump in there when I get home if y'all were still live. So yeah, man, it's great. This is crazy couple of weeks, huh?
This is like, did you ever think that like we'd be having this conversation?
Honestly, I mean,
I think you did.
Honestly, at some point, yeah, because I mean, you know, as a hardcore Xbox fan as I was, man, it was like, you know, I dropped that a while ago when I sold my Xbox Series. Like, I still have an Xbox Series X in my house, but that's my daughter's. Like, yeah. I just kind of disconnected myself from that, like just that whole not the ecosystem, because I still play.
You're still part of it.
Yeah, I still play everything on PC and stuff, but like the console side of it, it was like, yeah, man, they pushed me away from that a long time ago, and all this stuff just makes sense. All the stuff that happened made sense, and it's just more of the same conversation that people are talking about online, and some I agree with, a lot of it I don't. It's like, you know, I feel like there's a lot of fault to be pushed around in a lot of different areas and stuff, but I don't think anything's really. I really don't think anything is going to change. I just think that this is I think Order 66 is in effect right now. I just think they're gonna coast this out until they bleed it dry enough, and then we're just gonna see it operate operate the way they want it to operate without having to worry about, you know, making, you know, promises to a community on their own platform anymore.
Okay, when you say they're going to exercise Order 66, are you referring to hardware? Like they're going to get rid of hardware and then really kind of just focus on more of that software as a services? Yeah.
No, I think that's ultimately the long-term goal. I do think that they do have stuff in. They are, like, you know, even Sarah Bond spoke to it on her LinkedIn post where she was talking about that the hardware is already in full swing. I don't think they're in the business of killing the hardware just yet because they already have hardware in the works. But do I think there's going to be anything past that? No, not really, because I don't think they're going to do what it takes to make that hardware basically last, because they already been telling people I think the biggest thing for me, how do you reverse? And people keep saying that, oh, they can change it, they can reverse this, and I'm like, how? Like they've been telling people for 4, 5, 6 plus years, or I won't say 6 plus years, but at least since 2020, 2021, that you don't have to have an Xbox, you know, that you don't need to, you know, be a bearer of the hardware in order to, you know, thrive in their ecosystem. And for a lot of people, that's great. You know, I mean, you're able to play your games wherever you want to if you're that type of person, but then it inherently just devalues anything that you can kind of bring to market, because I think they always thought that Game Pass would be the refrigerator that actually made people want to play on there, because, you know, you get games day and date and everything. But I also think that that's kind of the double-edged sword, because you look at the revenue, and the funny thing is the revenue is like up. It's like it's higher than it's ever been before. But the problem is where it's not computing over to the profit side of it. And we all know the profit side of it comes from selling, you know, ancillary things on your platform. You know, when it comes to like that extra revenue you're making, that 30% that you're making and stuff from all the other game publishers, you know, bringing their games to your platform and stuff, you know, that's the part that they're missing. And they don't know how to get that back, because unless they're going to do a complete about face and just say that Game Pass is no more, because as much as I love Game Pass and I take and everybody in my house takes advantage of it, it was like the worst decision they could have ever did. It not the service itself, but the way that they engineered the service to like be front facing with the consumer. Like, it should have never been a day and day thing. It should have been something like after a amount of time, the games will just naturally go into that bunker. Or if they did want to do a day and day version of it, it should have came out the gate at a higher tier, like a higher dollar amount to like kind of, you know, the people that want that would pay into it, but the majority of people would still be buying their games and doing it that way. You know, that's kind of how, you know, Ubisoft does it with their Uplay subscription, and EA does it with their EA Pro subscription. You know, it's a high tier, but if you want it, it's there. So I just think there's a lot of missteps, but my biggest take from all of this, they got rid of the forward-facing people that were supposedly the problem. Now, ain't nobody gonna say that Phil Spencer and Sarabon and everybody else that was involved in all this wasn't culpable for a lot of the things that happened. You know, it's their fault that, you know, Craig was born on an E3 stage. You know, it's their fault. That should have never happened. You know, the rampant mismanagement of studios and timelines and developments and pipelines, that all falls on them. But somebody had to green light all this other stuff. Like
exactly.
Like, you know, Phil Spencer went to Saudi and came to him with a vision, and guess what? That vision had to get approved. So as long as that vision, I just feel like nobody wants to say it, but listen, 40% of the problem is gone, but 60% still remains. And and I don't see anything changing as long as that is still the process. And I'm not saying that, you know, that, you know, Sadia should go or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in general, Phil and everybody else are going to be used as a scapegoat in all of this, in this whole conversation, because they're the ones that was the forward-facing part of it. And they're the ones, and guess what? People have been screaming for leadership change forever at Microsoft. They've been screaming for it for years. And now we're about to have it. But now you have it with an individual that has nothing to do with gaming. And now people feel a way about that. So it was like, you want change, but then you don't like the change you got. I just feel at a certain point, if Microsoft was really, really invested in really turning this around in the long term, because I do think in the short term there will be changes, but in the long term, they would have made a completely different decision when it came to like who was going to run this division going forward. I just feel like it's like a caretaker, like taking something on in its final days at this point. And people keep saying it's like, well, they're making a lot of money. Yeah, they're making a lot of money. But remember, this is also a company that a long time ago, when their evaluation for the company was less, like just around $1 trillion, or probably way under it. They had Nokia, and that was a $7 billion purchase they did, and they just exiled that thing and threw it out the airlock. And guess what? and guess what? $7 billion that long ago was way more money than it is now. Like, if you equate to what that dollar amount is to what today's inflation prices are, that's a lot of money that they injected by just saying, you know what, this isn't working for us. So I don't see an avenue where they can make meaningful changes to bring people back to the platform, because they already told people for half a decade that you don't have to be on our platform to enjoy our platform. But It's crazy. I did not expect to be here this soon, though. I will say that.
Let me ask you a question, Slow-Mo. I'm sorry.
Not Slow-Mo.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to call you Slow-Mo. My bad.
You're fine.
Forte, let me ask you a question, though. You talked about Phil Spencer. I think you bring up a great point. Like, clearly somebody was approving these decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like Sarah Bond was thrown under the bus here?
So, like I said, Phil got a chance to walk out the door admirably, like just talking and ushering in, Asha and everything. So he was able to walk out the door with a little bit of his dignity still intact. Sarah basically didn't even get spoken of. And now you have everybody at the company saying how hard she was to work for, how they felt like when she walked in the building, people just decided not to come to work that day, said I'm sick or whatever and stuff like that. It's real easy to do things like that when, a person is down and decides to lead the company because, they're not going to, but then again, if I was one of those people, I probably would fire back, but who knows what kind of clauses she has when leaving a company that she can't say or, do certain things. So, I'm not going to jeopardize the bag because, no matter when you left Microsoft, you still got a bag when you left. So I do think to an extent she's definitely a part of the scapegoat because, like I said, I think Phil is going to be used as a scapegoat to change. The fact that Asha came out and said we have to figure out why the previous regime failed. I'm like, bro, they failed because they failed because they didn't have first party studios all the way up to 2017. They only had 3 or 4 of them. That was the first thing. The second thing is timing in the market. All of the studios they purchased, release games, multi-platform across other platforms, and they had to play the waiting game for those games to come back around for those studios to be able to purchase, to be able to release games under their stewardship. Then you had COVID hit. Then you had just crazy mismanagement, a whole bunch of stuff. First of all, they just had way too much responsibility on 1 or 2 different people where that should have been spread out way more across a bunch of different disciplines. So I think that kind of limited itself to that. But ultimately, the buck stops with Phil Spencer when it comes to being the head, of Xbox, of Microsoft Gaming. And I can still see a conversation when he talks to Sadia. And you watch those mobster movies, or you watch those, those movies and they have those conversations that says if this doesn't go away, heads are gonna roll. It ain't gonna be mine. It's gonna be somebody else's. So as much as this is gonna fall on Phil, there is definitely other extraneous circumstances that happen, but Phil and Sarah still are culpable for at least 40% of everything that happened to to Xbox itself, because it didn't just get there overnight. It was a build up of momentum that got us to where we got to, where the purchase of ABK was probably the tipping. Well, it wasn't even probably. It was the tipping point because, like, I told people the moment that Microsoft got a chance to see the books and see what a actual AAA developer publisher brings in annually for just a couple of games, not just one, a couple of games, then they're going to have a completely different tune, because now you're going to see like, hey, then if they're making all this money off this one, what are you doing as a division with this money? And then that's when that's when the bean counters get involved and want to start, doing, background checks and logs and stuff to see like, okay, what are we actually spending our money on? And then that's when you get like studio closures. Like, yeah, are these studios performing? Absolutely. But are they giving us what we need right now in order to appease the shareholders? Because at the end of the day, it's all about those people that are buying and replacing those stocks and stuff on a day-to-day basis. Microsoft didn't go from a $36 per share company to over $400 because they were stupid. They may do some nefarious things to get there, but they got there. So I don't know, but I do think they're at fault for at least 40 because I can never give them more than 40 because I feel like the buck stops with the people that signed the check to make that happen. Because Game Pass is not a small thing to like green light. You're literally taking your developers and saying we're paying you to put games in a subscription service that we know we're going to lose money on. When it comes to like the overall, your people aren't going to be buying games like that. You're giving it to them out the gate day one. So it's hard to put blame on them when it comes to that when that was greenlit from the top. I don't care who came up with the idea; it still had to get passed.
Yeah. I want to real quick. I want to play this. It's kind of. This is going to touch some of the things I think that you brought up here, Forte. I want to play the video here. This is Paul Thurrott and Brad Sams discussing the leadership change here at Xbox.
I don't know. I've already heard some things that I feel are what's going to happen, which is that we're setting up this person to fail with hardware because that has to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And that the way forward for Xbox is what we've been saying all along, which is just the software publishing part of it. And I don't know. I feel like, we know, I mean, this is a fact. Phil Spencer wanted to do an Xbox handheld.
Mm-hmm.
And the senior leadership team or the board, whichever, said no. And that's why the ROG Ally exists, right? There was the big story that Amy Hood came down and was like, you need to have, what was 30% margin somehow on a business that's never had anything other than single digit to negative margins. Really what that was about to me was forcing the issue. Like we need to get out of hardware. We just spent $68 billion on Activision Blizzard. Not so we can lose more money on another console, but so we can sell these games everywhere. She's probably there to make sense of the business as a business. She must be someone that's such an Adela trust for whatever reason. But maybe her detachment from the industry is part of the point, that we need someone who isn't attached to that game studio, that game, that franchise, whatever, who can look at this objectively and say, no, this is where it starts to make sense. And we're going to hate her for that. I mean, as gamers, right? As fans of Xbox, that it actually is not what we want, right? It's not her fault. I mean, I really don't want to personalize this, but I, again, I think we both made this case many times, though. It makes sense as a business. The hardware has to go. We all have this almost emotional attachment to the hardware, but that's the part that has to go.
Dang.
So right. Damn, right, Slip Forte. Yeah, I'll say this quickly. I felt that emotional attachment to the hardware again because I was an Xbox Live beta tester. I was there, day one in the original Xbox. I remember a lot of these great memories with the original Xbox and the Xbox 360, even the Xbox One. And I don't necessarily disagree with Paul Thurrott's assessment here that the hardware's got to go. And I thought I brought up an interesting point about her detachment from the gaming industry, her detachment from these studios. We've often heard behind the scenes, Phil's kind of a buffer, right? Phil saved Xbox. That's gone now. That's gone. So I'll go to you, Forte, again, and then I want to go to Logic and his thoughts. What did you think about Paul's comments here, Forte?
Man, things couldn't ring more true. The fact that they are, I mean, you saw this going back to, I'm gonna tell you when I knew everything kind of changed. We all know when Phil Spencer was doing his business, when he did the business interview and was talking about the 4 games and everything, and he couldn't, and he wouldn't answer directly, even though they kept pressing him about the game. Said we're only talking about these 4. There was no definitive answer on that. But people that, even people not in the know that absolutely knew everything still said, no, listen, it's not just these 4 games. There's going to be more. And then I remember last year, early in the year, I forget when it was, Phil Spencer did an interview and they were talking about Forza Horizon 5 and when it was going to PlayStation. And he said, what would you say? They asked him, what would you say to the community, for all the Xbox community, about, games like Forza going over to PS5? And he said, why would I keep good games from more people? And as soon as he said that, I was like, bro, the marching orders have come down. He can officially speak on it how he wants to speak on it, because he knows exactly what's happening going forward. And as soon as he said that, I was like, everything's going everywhere. Xbox is literally not going to exist in another 5 years, because they're moving forward with the initiative. Like, we need to get out of hardware. Let's start building these bridges with these other platform holders and start making our games and putting them on other platforms. The fact that, and it's very noticeable when you start looking at all the other platforms, when you look at, Nintendo's and the directs, and even with PlayStation with their latest state of play. Even though we know that games like Marathon are going to Xbox, even the Bungie developers wouldn't say any platform but PlayStation. Microsoft and Xbox, they'll just put it in on stage at their showcase and put a PlayStation logo up there. So it's like, that was all sacrilegious. It was like disrespectful and everything back then. But when you think about it in a business sense, when do you have the most eyes on your platform? When you're doing like these large showcases, and when you're doing that, you want to let people know by screaming from the rooftops, like, hey, these games are available here, but they're also available on a platform you probably already have. So Asha is going to definitely get a lot of pushback initially from a lot of people in like just the community, the fans and stuff in general. I actually like the fact that she went and started like talking to people. Like, I saw that Ryan McCaffrey put out the tweet saying about her messages being written by somebody like an actual gamer, and she actually responded to that stuff. And I was like, okay, I actually like that. But that's also because she doesn't have that she doesn't have like that veil of anonymity when it comes to like, oh, I'm a gamer. She said, no, she literally just spoke like this was a family account, that's been rectified. Everybody has their own now. But I just have to figure out how all these things works. And she's very not apologetic when it comes to that, because she is detached from that. And that's what they need. If they're really trying to like move away from what's going on and just get to the publishing side of games and basically be a bigger version of EA and Take-Two and Ubisoft and stuff like that, actually be the biggest, then they have to get someone in there that's desensitized to the fact that, like, I'm running this as a business where these games are going to be everywhere, and I can't really listen to what the fans are saying that are just Xbox fans anymore, because I think that's where Phil and Sarah live the most. Phil would be in Xbox Live parties, with people, playing games with people in the community and stuff like that. And then the closer you are to the situation, the more fluent it becomes and the harder it is to make decisions like that, where she doesn't have that problem. They just tell her what they want her to do and she'll just execute it. And so I definitely believe everything he's saying when he says that, because that's the reason people have left the platform. Like, I left it over a year ago when I traded in my Xbox because I said, hey, I can still play these games on PC, and I still do. Smooth just put out an amazing video of a brand new PC that he built. Still got Xbox logos. I'm proud of him for sticking with the green and black, and it looks cool. But one of the biggest Xbox supporters is on PC now. I don't know what his consoles. He probably still has his consoles, but the fact that he is promoting that he's doing that lets you know that the ties have changed drastically when it comes to like what people think of the platform now. You know, remember when Slow-Mo said it a long time ago when he said that the console is no longer the platform. The platform is the platform. Like he was talking about Game Pass being the platform, but now the publishing side of Xbox is the platform. The console is only going to be a means to an end until they can sunset that, because they still make enough money off of it to sustain it right now, because they already have stuff in the works when it comes to that. They're not going to just throw that money away because they already did the work in R&D. So they're going to do their due diligence and release that. But nothing's going to change. You're still not going to get exclusive games to that platform. Everything is just going to move to the point where, hey, the least amount of people that are on Xbox is the easier it is for them to say, we're going to pull the plug on it, just like they did with Xbox 360 when it came to online play. They just waited until nobody was over there no more. Like, hey, 5% of our player base is over there. Hey, we're turning this off. And that's kind of what's going to happen with this. If they see the majority of their monthly active users, like 70 to 80% of them or 85% playing in other places, they'll put out a blog with this heartfelt speech saying, ever since 2001, Xbox has been one of the forefronts in gaming. We appreciate the heritage and all the things that came with it, to the community for helping us reach this momentous occasion. It's going to be it's going to be a thing when it happens, but it's going to happen at some point. And I just want people to know that at this point, just don't even think that unless they prove to us they can change it. And I just don't think they have enough time, because it takes time to fix the damage that they did to the brand when it comes to just telling people what to do and what not to do. Some people think that can happen overnight. It took 4 years to get to this point. So you think they're going to reverse that in 2? Microsoft, even if they could reverse it in 2, the thing is Microsoft gonna get them the time to do it, because they didn't give them the time to release these games and reap the benefits of having a exclusive ecosystem of all these games coming out. The moment all these games was getting ready to come out was the moment they said all these games got to go other places. So I don't see anything else differently happening.
All right, Logic, I'm going to go to you. What did you think about what Paul had to say?
Yeah, I mean, I can't I can't comment on whether he's right or he's wrong. We're all making, predictions, guesses, and whatever. What I will say is what I've said for, I don't know for how long. Paul Thurrott been studying Windows been studying Microsoft, for even longer than I have. An expert on the company, has written several books on, tips and tricks for Windows. When he says, I've heard from people or I talk to people or sources, his sources are legitimate sources.
Mm-hmm.
His sources are not what journalists at gaming sites and gaming outlets claim are their sources. His sources are not people in the mailroom. His sources are not people who are way down the chain of command and nowhere near management. His sources are not hearing things, second and third hand, from management. He's hearing valid stuff. So yeah, just take that with a grain of salt, when you're making your purchasing decisions and deciding, or just, casually deciding, what you choose to believe from, the things people are putting out.
Yeah. I think he makes a great point about the hardware. Something that really kind of stood out to me was his, saying how she's kind of disconnected from gaming, right? Like I said earlier to Forte, like Phil was kind of like this buffer that's gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just if we look at their financials or look at the challenges, right? The market challenges that the Xbox hardware is facing now. The fact that it's the most expensive current gen hardware, console hardware, and yet it's seen consistent fiscal year declines, not quarterly, but fiscal year declines now. I think at some point, like you cut bait. Why? And then he talked about Amy Hood and that 30% profit margin. I don't know how you make that work and continue to make first party hardware. And I actually think to your point, Forte, about the Xbox Magnus. And I've Logic and I've had this conversation quite a bit. I've said to Logic, like I could see them. I could see them abandoning making their own Xbox first party Magnus console PC hybrid and instead shift to having, an OEM built model by like an Asus, Lenovo. I made the argument that the Asus ROG Ally was kind of the preview of what the next Xbox is going to be. And I think that, at least in my opinion, I think that a lot of that marketing from Sarah Bond, this is an Xbox, and then you saw a lot of the fans say, "Oh no, it's an Xbox." Is it? It has an Xbox. It boots up into Xbox, to the Xbox dashboard. It kind of like a big screen mode for Xbox on a handheld, a PC handheld, and it has the Xbox logo. It's an Xbox. You can't tell me any different. It's like, no, it's not an Xbox. It's and I could see that. I feel like that was kind of the messaging to the consumer base of, especially when you say everything's an Xbox, right? Them kind of just prepping them for that. Hey, like this next thing isn't going to be from us. It's going to be from an Asus. We're going to slap the Xbox logo on it, and we're going to call it an Xbox. So. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's kind of where they might be heading. I think, we hear, nothing's off the table. The first thing that comes to my mind is hardware. And like what Paul said, hardware's probably got to go. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple months if there are any tweaks to the business, which I think you said there probably won't be any major tweaks. But I think it's going to be interesting to see at some point if we, because again, I think the financials speak to hardware going away, which is kind of weird because I would, who would have thought 25 years ago? It's crazy. Like I don't think if they get out of hardware, I don't think it's going to be like completely getting out of hardware. I think it's going to be, like I just said, third party manufacturers making an Xbox hardware. I think, like you said, Logic, like what not Windows, but was it Google? What they did with I forget what phone it was.
Well, with the Nexus, but when I was talking about the Nexus, I was talking about that's what I could foresee in the near future, and what I had a 50-50 expectation Xbox Magnus would be. Like, so Xbox in the Nexus model, so if you're not familiar with the Nexus model, Google made a Nexus phone every year. That phone was designed and manufactured by sometimes HTC, sometimes LG. I think Samsung did one at one point. And typically what they would do is they would do the Nexus phone, and then like a couple months after it launched, then there would be a thing that looked like exactly like the Nexus phone, but called the Samsung whatever, or the HTC whatever, or the and if you were in the phone circles, then you knew that was the same thing as the Nexus phone, but just under a different brand. And that's how, when Motorola, right, when people were very confused at a certain point what a Droid was, and finally came to understand that, okay, Droid is not Android. Droid is specifically a Motorola phone made on Verizon. That's the only thing that's actually a Droid. People will go to, people would go to T-Mobile and AT&T and say, "Hey, I want to get the new Droid," and they would be told, "We don't have that. That's Verizon specific." So, but at any rate, so under that model, Xbox Magnus would be Xbox Magnus, but maybe it would be made by Asus, right, or Acer, but it would be considered a Microsoft console. It would just be made by another hardware vendor versus really a third party making a device that then Xbox licensed the brand to, which is what the ROG Ally is.
This is all a mess.
Well, let me ask you a question, Forte.
Such a mess.
Like what do you hear from your customers that go to your store?
Oh, nobody cares, bro. They
don't care about Xbox, or they don't care about any of this.
They just don't care about none of this. Like the people that buy, there's still people that buy Xboxes, and this isn't even a conversation. Like okay, I'll tell you this: the best part of walking away from being on console primarily is when people come into the store and have differencing of opinions on things that they buy or they want to talk about. You just don't care. You just don't care. I was like, man, that's crazy that you think that, but okay. But no, but a lot of people are the ones that actually do care, I guess, are very indifferent to it. Like they understand that, it's a business foremost, but they say as long as, the games, as long as they can still play the games on the platform, that's all that really matters to them, which is the way you should think about it. As long as the games are there for you to play, you should care. Now, there's still people that like the fact that they have a preference to controller style and stuff like that. Some people still, but then there's still people that just love playing on the platform that they grew up playing on. Like Xbox been around for 25 years, bro. Like, that's not a short amount of time. Like, I tell people, I haven't been excited. The last time I was truly excited for a console, like truly, truly excited, was the Xbox One. Like, we all grew up on Nintendo and PlayStation, then we kind of migrated to PlayStation. Some people never came over to Xbox, but a lot of people did. But then, like, when the original Xbox came out, I was floored. I was like, yo, this is great. And then I just kind of fell in love with that ecosystem, and my friends were there, and online gaming started there for me. So it was just like more of a match. It was like a more easy transition just to stay in that ecosystem. But, just buy the games I wanted to buy on a PlayStation, like God of War was the only reason I kept buying a PlayStation. But it's like after a certain amount of, time of just being let down, and to be honest, it wasn't even that Microsoft let me down. I just felt like I was being a mouthpiece and doing something for them that they weren't doing for themselves. It's like I felt like I would be on this podcast and tell people when I remember telling people when the Xbox One X came out, you guys are going to love the fact that you're going to be able to play 60 frames per second consistently. I was like, because there's no reason that console shouldn't have been able to do it. It's like no reason in heck. Like, but we live in an age where visuals mean more than gameplay, and a lot of developers, opted for the latter. They wanted to give people the visual gameplay and other than the actual thing that they should have wanted to give people the most, which is better overall fundamentals in games. And then the Series X came out, and same conversation, same thing happened. And then the tires got blown off by telling people that, you don't need to be on Xbox. And I was vehemently against that, because I understand you're trying to sell a service, but there is so many different ways you can sell that service and still tell people that they should have the console. Like, I just felt like you're pushing people away. And then when people see the financials, they say, oh my God, they're down 30%, 40% year over year. Duh. Like if you're not bringing people into your platform, your revenue is going to tank. Like people's like, oh, their console sales are down, but their revenue is also down too. Duh, they're a correlation with each other. It's like the more people on your platform, the more money they spend. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, you know, that's why none of that stuff ever shocked me when it came out, because I was like, yo, what do you expect? Hey, but you know, not this podcast. I mean, because I understand the YouTube game. So when stuff like that comes out, there's going to be a bunch of conversations about it. But it gets real irritating when it's like a constant flow of conversation around something that is so noticeable, but everybody acts like it's stupid. Like it's not. It's very cut and dry, to the point. One thing affects the other. And guess what? This decision is going to affect the future. And right now, and I know Logic said, you know, this is all everybody's opinions, and he's absolutely right. But it's just hard to believe that anything tangibly is going to be different from this change, other than Xbox not being the steward of their own hardware anymore. They spent way too much money to acquire these studios to just throw the name Xbox away. I don't think that's going to happen ever. I mean, I take that back. I won't say ever, but that's not going to happen in the near future. I can see 10 years from now, and Microsoft still uses the Xbox name as a vehicle to drive their games on other platforms. I can still see that. But I can easily see a future, like we were just talking, where that hardware that they're leasing out to other people to make for them with the rights. I think the next console will be, if the next console is their console, that will be the last console that's their console. After that, everything else is just going to be, you know, piecemealed out to whoever wants to, you know, build the best platform to house those games. And it might not just be one, it might be 2 or 3 different places, because, you know, Microsoft really isn't in the business of flipping that bill anymore when it comes to like hardware.
Yeah. No, great points, Forte. But look, I do want to wrap up the show here.
Real Nate said he was fighting for his life until he got that.
I saw that, the 4090. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I got that 4090, and I was sitting there like, bro, listen, I don't need this Xbox no more.
It made that decision a lot easier, right?
Honestly, I'm telling you, when you have a PC where you can just turn it on and it recognizes whatever game you put in it, and it puts it to the max settings or close to it, bro, that's a life changer. I ain't gonna lie. That's a life changer.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, look, I do want to, first, I want to thank everyone in the live chat for coming by, hanging out with us tonight. Really appreciate the support as always. Do me a favor, hit the like button. And if you enjoyed the conversation this evening, please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And want to give a big, huge thank you to Gaming Forte. Forte, we've missed you. It's been way too long, sir. Way too long.
Yeah, yes, man.
We love having you here on the show tonight. Really happy that you could come through. But like I said, don't be a stranger, man. And obviously, you know, jump in anytime you can, man.
Absolutely.
You know, we had B was on last week. Slow-Mo's been on. I think so. It's been about a month, I think. So Slow-Mo's been on. But yeah, Forte, no, always a pleasure, man. Just again, anytime you have some availability, just come on through, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Forte, are you guys doing DPS tomorrow?
Yep. I mean, unless Slow-Mo's sick, you know, that's the only thing that will stop. Or I could be sick. Who knows? Anything could happen tomorrow. You know, we could find out that Matt Booty doesn't get his promotion that went through, and then we will have an emergency podcast. I don't know. We'll see. I think that man has fell forward more times than a cat falling on all fours. It's crazy, but
that's funny.
Let's just move on. Let's just move on, bro. But no, DPS podcast tomorrow, 9 p.m. On the DPS channel. Going to be a great time with the homie Slow-Mo Backslap, and if you guys already know where we're at, man. So hope to see you guys there. And I definitely had to come through because I love you guys, and I listen to y'all every week. I just 90% of the time I'm just not at the house when y'all live. And then I remember 2 weeks ago when I think I super chatted and Logic was like, Forte, you've been missing in action too long. And I was like, you know what? I gotta make time to make sure I'm here one day. So thank you, Logic, for putting me to task a couple of weeks ago.
I don't remember what Logic said.
He said something. He said something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said something.
Look, I trying to not be emotional or say something inappropriate on the air.
Emotional.
Yeah, man. Look, I miss you, man. I missed it. Like,
yeah,
emotional.
I miss the days. You know,
the days. Oh man, them days still here, man. I'm still here. I ain't went nowhere.
I know. I know we were around. We just, you know, it hasn't, you know, I haven't been on DPS forever. You haven't been on here. I just miss those days, man.
Dude, my camera has not been hooked up to my PC in over 3 months. That's how. Really? No. The last time you see me on IOP on camera was the last time I actually had that thing hooked up to my PC. I just had to take a vacation from a mental break. Work was kind of crazy too for a while, but that's it. But I appreciated y'all. You know, trust me, even knowing I wasn't in here, I was like listening and watching and looking at the chats and stuff and seeing what people were talking about and everything. You know, you gotta still be engaged in it a little bit. But I ain't gonna lie, man. It's like when people deal with stuff like this differently. Sure. Like instead of fighting with everybody online about why things are happening the way that they're happening, I just decided it's like, you know what? I don't feel like arguing with people because I ain't going to be the one that's going to back down from them and they ain't not going to back down from me. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, we're not about to have this conversation for like the next 15 minutes in front of a live studio audience of people that like the Twitter thumb and stuff. So that's kind of the biggest reason why I just took a break from it all. But, it's kind of hard not to like come in and like, you know, at least speak on all this because this is like a big part of like most of all of our lives and stuff. Like I'm 46. Microsoft has been a part of my life since 21. That like I graduated the year before Xbox came out from high school. So, you know, late night gaming and clan battles. It's very... And the reason it feels so emotional is because the people that the last bastions of gamers, I feel like the company are gone. Like as much as they were the problem, I just don't feel like the people that are in charge now are going to have the gaming side of it, you know, at its best interest. Is going to be at the best interest of what makes them the most money. Which all game companies should do. They should be about making money, but I also feel like there's like a lost art of community that I feel like is like going to evaporate, you know, overnight when it comes to decisions that's been made over the last week. So, but I appreciate you, and I love you too, Logic. You can say it out loud. People won't be mad at you.
We love you, Forte.
Ooh, yeah.
Well said, by the way. It's very similar. I took a 3-month hiatus off Twitter, and I'm back now, but I'm back with a thorough mantra that I'm not arguing with people. I just, you know, there's too many people on there who aren't even real, who don't really have an objection to what you're saying. They're just looking to try and get a rise and get attention because for some reason they've got mental illness and like it makes them happy. You know, so I'm like, and I just won't. I'm just not. Yeah,
I don't have that energy.
Yeah,
let's
go over there, post games and news, and if you want to argue and fight, then you know you can find somebody else.
Yes, sir.
So yeah. No, I totally get it. It's good to see you though, man. I'm glad. Glad we're getting it back together.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, it's great. It really is great to see you, Forte. I mean, like I said, we've had B Money on recently. Be great to get B, you, Slow-Mo, because it's been a long time since we've had everyone on the panel. So we need to figure that out. Yeah,
we'll make it
figure that out. Yeah. So, but yeah, catch DPS tomorrow night, 9 p.m. or no, sorry, 8 p.m. Right? Or is it 9 p.m.?
9 p.m.
9 p.m. I'm sorry, 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, so I do want to point out this one thing that really made sense. So this is the thing I'm talking about. Like even since I've been back, I posted something about I posted. Hey, it said, hey, it's really funny that Lulu has had lots to say in support of Asha Sharma, but couldn't lift one finger to say anything about Sarah Bond or how she's getting dragged in the media. And I pointed out, some of you guys have, picked Lulu as a hero, and innate, like I saw this one guy come by, but like I didn't bother saying anything. So one guy came by and said, yet another white dude like sore that women of color are coming to power. I'm like, bro, have you not seen my profile?
Bro,
oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I was like, bro, you just speaking out of both sides, bro. You don't even know what you're talking about.
And he posted twice. He posted 2 angry things. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I can't even be bothered.
That's when you should have put the Samuel L. Jackson meme up there where you looking at him real funny.
Yeah, exactly.
With the wife beater on. That's the one. That's the one.
Oh my goodness, that is so funny. Yeah, that is wild. That's wild.
No, people just say what's on their mind and don't think about what they're saying when they say it.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. But we got to figure that out sooner than later. And Logic, I don't know if you want to plug enough to keep going, but I'll leave that up to you.
No, I don't have anything to plug right now. I'm undergoing some reconstruction.
All right, sounds good. Well, Forte, again, always a pleasure, sir. Great to see you back on. Like I said, we miss you, we love you, and we gotta get your boys, your buddy, Mr. Slomo. Gotta get him on too.
Get him on.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that note, everyone. Thank you for watching. Please do the YouTube thing. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you learn when we go live, and we will catch you next time. Thank you for watching.
Peace.